I wish I could vote on this.
Yeah. Okay, so do we have any results for our poll to report? Hmm.
Yes. Interesting.
The majority say I use it every day. And then second place is a few times a week. I've experimented. A very small number haven't started. So that's great.
Hmm.
That's amazing. So let's get into our questions now. 6 months ago, AI was still experimental for a lot of planners. 6 months ago feels like yesterday, right? But that's changing fast. Let's talk about what is actually happening on the ground with planners and AI. So, again, James, 6 months ago, AI was still experimental. What are you seeing now?
I think we've crossed an important line. The conversation used to be, shall I use AI? Now it's becoming, where should I use it first? Smart planners aren't trying to automate their entire job. They're identifying the repetitive work that steals time from their work that only they can do, which is building relationships, solving problems, and creating memorable experiences. My simple rule is don't start with AI. Start with the friction, the end results. Find something that's slow, repetitive, or annoying, and then ask whether AI can make it faster or better. And that's where the ROI starts.
Mm,
Return on ideas.
thank you. Thank you, James. So, Nick, what has changed the most in how event professionals are using AI?
Yeah, I mean the risk aversion in the event space is woven into everything. So trepidation was the first few phases of AI, and I think that initiatives from organizations and mandates from leadership have smoothed that over, have made that something that they have to invest in, and that the fear of some sort of adoption has given way to what am I supposed to do next? And I
Mhm.
do agree thankfully, with everything that James said, I do think that there is a point right now where the inflection is the next level of fear is, well, we're going to be using this. How do I use this in a way that adds to what I do, doesn't take away from it, doesn't add more barriers, and also ensures that I still can make a living. The good news on that is that the event space, I think, is uniquely buffered from a lot of the ways that automation has taken over other fields. And I do agree that even looking at full-on automation is a misstep, at least this stage of where we're at, and also probably full stop. That's my opinion anyway. I think there's a lot of opportunities for adoption of AI that adds to the individual as opposed to takes away. And I just think the nature of the majority of the work done in the event space doesn't lend itself to large scale automation to the benefit of what we do.
Okay, great. Thank you. So, James, are planners asking better questions about AI today than they were, let's say, a year ago?
Absolutely. There is a big shift from AI as a toy to AI as a teammate that takes instructions. A year ago, the question was, what can AI do? And today, the better question is, what should I have AI do? That distinction matters greatly. AI generates hundreds of ideas. Think of it as a really smart employee that's never, ever had to make a decision, doesn't ask for a raise, doesn't care if it's 24/7. But you still have to know which idea fits the client, the audience, the budget, and the moment. And I've referred to that for all of my life as thinking inside the box, not outside the box. Because the winners are not going to be the people who know the most about AI. The winners are going to be the people who understands their business well enough to know where AI creates leverage.
Great. So, following that, Nick, what is one myth about AI that you wish would disappear?
Yeah, I mean, I think the one where there's only one way to use it, that it is something that does your homework for you, that it is uh, a means to only go really fast. I think those are all very limited use cases, and those are the ones I think in a lot of C-suites for brands, the ones that they're eager to adopt because it doesn't require the leadership to think differently. They just reduce their task or their force. They understand that, but it's actually deeper and it has many different use cases beyond just speeding things up. So for me, it is AI. The myth that I want to debunk is that AI is exclusively a tool for expediency and scaling, as opposed to being able to go deeper and add strategic elements to what you do, and ultimately empowering of the individual.
Great, thank you so much. Before we move on, though, I think a few people joined late, so I just want to say that yes, you will get CEU credit for today's webinar. Just make sure that the address that you registered for is the same address on your EIC account. And we'll be sharing our white paper at the conclusion of the session. But if you have any more questions about what you might have missed, let me know. Let us know.
Lisa,
Okay.
could I add just a quick thing about that myth?
Of course.
The big myth that I would like to see disappear is that AI is going to replace people.
Yeah.
AI doesn't replace talented planners, but a talented planner who knows how to use AI can be more capable. So if you think of AI as an amplifier, I call AI accelerated insights, because artificial intelligence still needs actual intelligence.
Okay.
I like accelerated insights. I've been using it as a perspectives engine. I think we're coming at it very similarly.
Yes.
It's not the end, but it is food for thought with smart individuals with good taste and maybe some wisdom.
Great. Thank you very much. So you're both very quotable. So we're going to go to a quote actually from James. If we could move along there. Oh, there we are. If you're not using AI and your competition is, you're in trouble. So that sounds provocative, but actually it leads us perfectly into our next session. So AI here, what do we do with it? This segment is all about workflows, the practical day-to-day ways planners are actually using AI right now, not the hype, the work. So let's look at a snapshot of where AI is already showing up in event planning workflows. Ideas and brainstorming, writing and editing, data analysis, agenda development, communications, and reporting. Some of these might surprise you, and some might already be part of your routine. So, James, if someone only has time to master one AI workflow this month, where should they start?
Start with something you already do several times a week, not something exotic. Email, meeting notes, proposals, research, surveys. Pick one. And then measure three things. Number one, how long does it take today? Number two, can AI improve the quality? And number three, how much time does the new workflow save? These are all measurable. If you save 20 minutes on something you do 10 times a week, suddenly AI isn't technology, it's capacity.
Interesting. Okay, thank you. And we have somebody here saying, I ran an AV proposal through AI and it makes suggestions that saved me $3,000. So awesome. That's amazing. So, Nick, how do you choose the right AI platform for the job?
Yeah, I mean, in some instances, the choice is done for you, depending on if you're in an organization that has made these line wide. Usually, those decisions end up skewing more towards consolidation of information for the sake of privacy and security, that makes sense. So in some instances, someone's already made that decision for you. But let's say you can use anything. I find that like this ends up being a race where whatever I say today wouldn't apply next week as far as who's the best at this model or in this use case, et cetera. Specifically in the top, like let's say 4 or 5 LLMs that are out there. So I don't really hung up on that as much, simply because I feel like the input stage, meaning how you work with the platform, ends up being more of a thing in your control and has a greater impact on the outcome than the hidden layers of any specific platform, one or the other. That said, there is advantages if you are in a specific ecosystem to utilize that ecosystem's LLM. An example is if you are all in on Google, you know what? At that point, may as well use Gemini. The Gemini's got a lot of really great strengths, and it has the ability to tap into many of the utilities that you're utilizing there, specifically like a Gmail. But if you're just using, a little bit here, a little bit there, then ultimately, whatever answer I give you is going to be technically right maybe now, but it wouldn't be right the next week. I would say stay the course. Your relationship with your LLM is more important than switching horses all the time. Like you can go deeper and deeper in its understanding and expectations of you and what you want from an outcome. For me, it's just whatever one you're using now, go in deeper with it. And then the applications that I would start with, as you said in the previous question, would be the lowest stakes possible. Just get into rapport, get into how your communications create shorthand, and ultimately develop your dialogue so that ends up becoming one that has a familiarity, because what you don't want over an extended period of time of using this is always talking to an intern. You want to level up who you're talking to over time as well.
Interesting. Okay, yeah, thank you.
Since you used the reference to the toolbox,
Yes,
don't fall in love with the tools.
I
Fall
agree.
in love with the outcomes.
All right, that
You can't use a Phillips screwdriver to remove a slotted screw. It's not the fault of the screwdriver. It's the fault of the user.
Great. Thank you. That kind of leads into the next question for you, James. Where do planners waste the most time that AI could eliminate?
where to start?
Everything, right?
Where to start? Right. So I coined a phrase for a meeting group last week: administrative gravity. All those small tasks pulling you away from your higher value work. Rewriting emails, summarizing meetings, comparing documents, organizing feedback, blah, 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 blah. None of these jobs individually destroys your day, but together they can. So AI is particularly valuable when it comes to removing that friction so the planner gets back to work that creates the experience.
Mhm.
And so one of the things that I tell every planner is use AI to answer the question you're having about AI.
Okay.
In other words, go into AI and say, I'm using Claude and I don't understand. You don't ask Claude the question, you would ask ChatGPT. If you're having a problem with ChatGPT, you might ask Gemini or Claude, because they become very hyper-focused on giving you those inside tools and tips to making it work better. Again, you got a butter knife sitting in a steakhouse. If you use the butter knife to try to cut the steak, it doesn't work.
Right. Okay. So Nick, regarding mistakes and wasting time, what's the biggest mistake people make when writing prompts?
Probably not having all of the unique and domain specific context and all of the project specific constraints required to have the outcome be something beyond just the average. I think the majority end up, you can go down rabbit holes, and there certainly is value in the economy of what you choose to have in your prompts, but more often the problem ends up being not rich enough and specific enough context, and then forgetting the constraints that bring this down to the real world. So thinking about those two columns, I frequently write instructions for agentic, and I have a framework that is 3 words, which is always, sometimes, and never. And I start filling in my expectations of in the always, the hard lines that you can't cross, usually mission, vision, values, and such, for the nevers, and then the sometimes end up being the conditional things that come in over time. And with that, it forces me to think about constraints and context. We have so much domain knowledge. We have so much niche information in our minds. Getting it out is really the challenge. And the best way to do that, I find, is having it ask me questions, having AI interview me. And usually ending my prompts with a statement of, what did I leave out to set you up for success before you run this? That allows you to have a catch-all that takes the stress away from writing the perfect prompt.
Okay, great.
Ladies and gentlemen, if you hear nothing else, what Nick just said is probably the most valuable thing you can walk away with.
I put it like
ask AI, what did I not ask you that I need to know to make this work?
I put like 100 font in the slide that I do for that one, and basically say you can kind of stop paying attention to the rest of this, because if you have that in your back pocket, I mean, for me, it's like, obviously all of your prompts will be greater improved, but I think more importantly, boy, does the stress just go away. Do the best you can, end it with that, answer questions you definitely know the answers to, and watch as everything just improves.
So we do actually have time for a quick question. Any advice on data input maintenance and data governance from teams using AI and connecting to your data? Anybody want to tackle that one? Any advice on data input maintenance and data governance from teams?
It's the old story, garbage in, garbage out.
Okay.
Yep.
So, I mean, you've got to stop thinking of AI as something up in the sky because you watch sci-fi movies. You have to think of it as your personal assistant sitting next to you, because AI isn't a mind reader. You want to give it context. You want to give it constraints. You want to give it a clear definition of success. I like to think of this as briefing a very capable new employee. Because if your instructions would confuse a human being, I can promise you they will confuse AI.
Okay.
One more practical on the data part. I mean, for me, giving it the information that is required, but looking at the information and the data that you have, and removing things that don't add value to the outcome. Also, just in general, because I work for a data company in the event space that utilizes AI, there's opportunities for redaction and things like that. Those are all practical, great things. But really, it's like, do you know what your outcome is going to be? Do you know what you're trying to prove? Start with the outcome and work backwards. Because then what you find is a refinement of the data to only the necessary fields becomes pretty natural. But it's like, imagine a perfect world where you can make decisions based around having guidance on an area that, is above. Okay, now you're there. Now work backwards to determine what information you would need to do that, and then strip away everything that isn't. I mean, I work in events that are specifically frequently in pharma or medical, where data compliance is a big element of everything. Having a closed system where you know where the data is going to be used for is probably super important. But after that, it's just having a data strategy, and the strategy guides what you put in and what you leave out.
Okay, great. Thank you. Thank you. So, but before we jump into our next segment, I want to make sure you know something about next month. Coming up is our next Era of Incentive Travel Summit across land and sea, which is September 14th through 16th at the Waterstone Resort and Marina in Boca Raton, Florida, which is my native state, Florida. This is a fully hosted experience for approved planners, hotels, meals, wellness sessions, expert-led education with CEU credits, and even airfare support up to $250. So we only have a few spots left, which is why we're mentioning it now. So if this sounds like something for you, please click on the link we just dropped in the chat, register today, and don't wait on this one because spots are going fast. So there we are in the chat. Okay, awesome. Now we're going to move on to segment 3, human skills in an AI world. So let's flip the conversation a little bit. AI can do a lot, but it can't do everything. And frankly, some of the most important parts of event planning are the ones that require a human touch. So, James, what separates an average planner using AI from an exceptional one?
Judgment. An average user asks AI for an answer. An exceptional user asks AI for possibilities, evaluates those possibilities, and then makes the decision. That human layer is everything.
Okay.
AI can tell you what is statistically reasonable. A great planner understands the client well enough to recognize when reasonable isn't remarkable. And we all want to sell remarkable because that's where experience becomes incredibly valuable.
Okay, great. Thank you. And Nick, how do you keep your own thinking from becoming dependent on AI?
Atrophy of intelligence is absolutely a legitimate worry depending on how you use AI. I find myself listening to James and just saying, like, I'm saying the same thing. I'm just using slightly different words. And it's amazing. Like I use the word taste and on what is valuable. Sometimes I alluded to it earlier. I use the word wisdom, which is even higher. And then I utilize the domain knowledge for that. But like as far as how to separate yourself, one of the most important things is that when you're working with AI, you have to put ingredients into it that only you would put in. That's how you get not just subpar or to scale average or competent mediocrity. These are all the things you don't want. What you do want is some level of you in there. You want to see something that is an ingredient that is unique to your perspective and bringing value to that you would only do in the same way that James uses his words and I use my words. Continue doing that and put as much of you in there as possible. And then also when you don't do that, realize there's actually some value in this too. When you put something into AI and you get something out of it, realize that what you've just got is the average. It's actually really valuable to know the average. I wouldn't stop there ever. I would consider that just a snapshot of what the average is. But then you get to iterate. And then the exciting part is the variety of perspectives that you can get in different iterations. It's almost like seeing parallel worlds. And then what you do is you take a little bit from column A, a little bit column B, C, and you assemble something that has these different perspectives into something new. AI could have never come up with that, but also without AI, you wouldn't have been able to do that either. And that's I think the secret is taking all these different versions and then using, like I would say, taste in this instance, using that skill to take, oh boy, the 2 words from this version of it, that's excellent, but I don't like it with those. I like it with more with something like this, or grounding it in reality, because most of us live squarely in reality in the event world. Like we know that things have to be done in a certain way. So all of those assemblings, that's where it gets exciting. And no one's going to take that job for a variety of reasons, but it really future-proofs your career when you can go down a bunch of different rabbit holes, take in all that information, and then put something out there that's never been done.
So, James, is there a part of event planning that should not be outsourced to technology, and what is it?
Technology helps you evaluate options. It doesn't have any accountability of those decisions. So for me, I'm very careful in outsourcing moments requiring empathy, trust, sensitive negotiation, or genuine human connection. Nobody wants to hear how upsetting this situation is. They want to hear, what are you going to do about it? They don't want to hear your feelings are very important to an algorithm. Some moments, and especially in our business, require a human being talking to a human being. Now, AI can help you prepare for the conversation AI can help you do a back and forth of how you're going to deal with it. But you need to remember that it doesn't make decisions. It just tries to point out to you what's out there and leave the decision making up to you.
Okay. So related to that, Nick, where does emotional intelligence become even more valuable because of AI?
I mean, I think it is going to be now that we have somebody else in the workforce that isn't a human. I think we're going to find is that we're going to really, for the first time ever, define human skills, and that will be high among them. I mean, I do believe that, as James said, in my opinion, empathy is number one. AI is devoid of empathy. Nothing that comes through it comes through from a specific human condition, which means it's lacking that. It's a vacuum, and that's where we fill it. And I do believe that AI has the ability to aid our empathy, not in giving us more empathy, but giving us perspectives that will allow our empathy to lead things. Like empathy-led prompting results in much better information than without it. An example I do frequently is I will, instead of asking how to create a networking event, I will say, what is a typical networking experience like from a first person point of view for, let's say, a wheelchair user? Now, it will give me a narrative, and that narrative isn't the end, but that narrative is something that I can then have in the back of my mind when I'm designing, so I can then create something that has not been done, that has a sense of opportunity for belonging that would be better than what is normally accomplished. That is leading AI with empathy. The outcome is not empathetic in necessarily, but it will be the information that you would need. And that's all it is information for you to then go back to your empathetic skills. So I think it ends up being a baton pass of human skills to machine work. The machine then should stimulate more human ideas, and back and forth and back and forth.
Okay. Somebody has a question here regarding prompting, maybe. Is there a good way to word the questions that will help AI provide the most productive answers? I know you touched on that, but does anyone have a comment about that?
So if you don't know how to write the prompt, and a lot of people get afraid of it, ask AI to help you write the prompt.
Yeah.
Remember, this is really very simple to understand as long as you give it a name, a personality. Like my ChatGPT is named Mr. Spock because I thought it was only logical. Now, I didn't have to rename Claude because Claude already had a name, so I left it alone. But I have conversations because at the end of the day, it's just one more mastermind. And that's where you get the perhaps accelerated insight, or as Nick and I have talked about, it takes you down a path that you might not have thought of, but it's not making any decisions for you. If you've ever heard me speak, I talk about A1 steak sauce. It is the number 2 condiment. Even if you're buying a $100 steak, it's still sitting there because it enhances the flavor. Now, if you put too much on the steak, it ruins the steak. And that's the same thing with AI. A little goes a long way. Play with it, see what it does. And if you've got a question, then take that output and put it into another AI tool and ask it the question. I'm going to put into the chat a fun thing that I discovered, which will allow you to ask the same question of 4 different language learning models, and it gives you 11 choices. So instead of having to go back and forth, you say, okay, let me put up Gemini and Claude, etc., and it runs them all simultaneously. And then if you ask it, it will summarize and give you its opinion of what the takeaway was. It's kind of fun to use, and I'll put it in the chat.
Great, thank you. And we also have a question also from Ava. As AI, maybe you can get this one, Nick, as AI becomes more capable of handling research, content creation, and data analysis, how do you see the planner's role changing? And go ahead. What uniquely human skill do you think will become even more valuable? We talked about empathy.
Yeah, I would say another one that is, for years and years, event planners, organizers, they've been asked to be strategists, but they haven't been given any tools in order to take the logistics off their plate. Now we have the tools to take the logistics off their plate. So I think now is actually a time where it is fair to say your role will be one of strategy first, and logistics will be one where your role is delegation, because you finally have someone to delegate to in the form of AI. The human skill that I think would be most valuable in interfacing with that in these instances is curiosity. You want to be able to relentlessly iterate. You know, whatever it gives you is a starting point and it's one variation, but you have to be curious. You have to say, yeah, but what if? Or have we considered? Or what are common missteps? Or all of those things. And by the way, the outcome of curiosity and getting back these answers is one where you gain insights, you become more valuable, you elevate in your organization, you elevate in your intelligence. And it is one where it is a leveling up, as opposed to, how do I do this? AI, you do it for me, cut and paste. That is a road that leads you diminished. So anytime you're interfacing with AI, saying, did I get smarter at the outcome of this? And if you did, then you're on the right course.
Okay, awesome. Thank you. So now, actually, Nick, we're going to move on to one of your quotes. You actually said this at our summit, and it just hit like a ton of bricks. Don't use AI to go twice as fast. Use it to go twice as far. So that
For me, it's just excellence. Like my aspiration is towards excellence. I've seen the promised land. I know what a A1 to take that term, event looks like. I just have been constrained with too many limitations to be able to actually reach it, if I'm being honest. I've been fearful of failure as my nemesis, as opposed to reaching. If you increase my capacity, I don't want to just get to the same place I've always been with least amount of friction. What I want to do is go further than I've been able to go. So that's my aspirational framework.
That's great. I think we all feel that way. Thank you. So let's talk about what planners should be doing now to stay ahead. James, what should they be learning today that will matter next year?
So let's start with something that's near and dear to my heart. Pay the $20.
Yeah.
You're never going to get even remotely close to what the AI tool can do if you're using the free version. Now, I'm not suggesting you go out and get 10 of them and spend a lot of money. I'm suggesting you get 1 or 2 less Starbucks and get something that actually impacts your business. So don't focus entirely on learning a bunch of tools, because the tools change. I also tell people, don't buy the annual because the tools change. But there are skills: how to frame a problem, how to give AI context, how to evaluate an answer, how to protect sensitive information, and how to make repeatable workflows that save you time so you can focus on making those extraordinary experiences for your clients. And remember, what works today may not be working next week or tomorrow, because AI doesn't come with a set of instructions. So the more you know about a given tool or ecosystem, the better you are, because you can see the changes taking place. But if you're bouncing around between 4 or 5 different platforms, you get lost, you don't remember where you saw something, etc. And then the last part of it is open up a project folder, just like a filing cabinet. So take everything that you're talking about, let's just say this Prevue meeting, and put it in a file folder and label it. And then it can continually reference that material and not have to go back and search for it all over again. Those are the skills that matters. The skills that matters are, did you clearly identify the outcome? And did the tool help you reach that outcome? And if the answer is no, then check your prompt. Perhaps you take your prompt and move it into another tool. Or at the very least, say, my favorite question is, and Nick's the same way, what do I need to know that I didn't ask you? And then the last thing I will tell everybody, when it stops talking to you, it may not be done talking. So put in continue and watch what happens. And do it again until it finally says, we're done. I just did that with a client that got 3 pages We did it with Continue. We ended up with 61 pages. The difference was night and day. She was
Awesome.
using the free version and it stopped at 3. I talked her into the $20 and it stopped at 61. And there's the difference.
Well, there you go. Thank you. Thank you. So, Nick, how should teams introduce AI without overwhelming staff?
Yeah, that's a big question. I think that there ends up being explorers within every organization who are wired to try and experiment. And then there is a spectrum of adoption and frictions. What you want to do is you want to provide use cases and you want to be able to provide things that are very highly tactical from different points of view. And you want buy-in immediately. So for me, I think about this as a 30, 60, 90-day adoption, and with a lot of, instead of trying to eat the whole thing in one bite, you take it in increments. And the first increment is experimentation, and then even some level of gamification around sharing. Because what happens is if you find a use case and you promote the ability to share that amongst teams, and have them do the work to be able to make it broader so it has the impact for more organization or, deeper in the organization, you find that the peer-led ends up being more contagious. So, and that's what you want. You want the excitement and the culture to be one where we create something for ourselves and then we share a version of it that would be valuable to the rest of the team. And if you create a culture that incentivizes that, then your organization wouldn't need, and if you have one of these already, that's great, but like a chief innovation officer or an innovation task force, if you have those things already, they have those apparatuses, apply it here. But if you don't have those, and a lot of the groups that I work with are associations and they don't, then what I find is just creating and promoting the wins of test cases. And then what you work your way into is once you get over the barriers and once you create a culture of sharing, then it becomes one where you start a refinement, and then the refinement ends up being standard operating procedures. But don't think about starting at a standard operating procedure. Just think about experimentation along lines that you think would have the most value to other teams within your organization.
Okay, thank you. So, James, what's one capability that you're excited about and that's just beginning to emerge?
I think the fact that Google sort of came as a latecomer and now they've created an ecosystem. Microsoft has an ecosystem. Stick within the ecosystem so that you're not bouncing around from one tool to another, because the future isn't just AI tell me what to do. It's AI help me research, organize the information, identify the options, prepare the materials, and help me move forward on this project. That changes AI from an information tool, which is where it started, into a capability layer. You start seriously thinking about how does AI impact your bottom line? And by doing that, again, name it, pay the $20, say, this is the outcome I'm looking for. Help me create the path to get there. It's like being a pilot. The pilot has a flight plan. That flight plan is to get from point A to point B. If you don't know where point B is, you're just flying around. Establish your point B, and then the way to get there almost becomes self-evident.
Good point. Thank you. So, Nick, what's one piece of advice you'd give someone who's still hesitant about using AI?
I would say at this stage, I would identify what their hesitation is, because there's a variety of different hesitations. I think that there's validity in all of them. What they don't necessarily know is that there isn't just a singular way to use it, because what they've probably hung up on is, well, it can only be used for this, it can only be used for that, and I don't need that. So I think that once you understand what they believe is the limitation of it, then it would be providing them an alternative to thinking about like that. Like, this is not a calculator that does one thing. it is a Swiss Army knife. So I would identify what the barrier is and the friction is at first. But if I was talking to a broad group, I would say take it in low stakes environments and simply ask it for briefings or perspectives. There can't be any downsides to that. It's not doing the work for you. It's not automated. It's simply multiple perspectives that you could use or not use. And what you'll find with that almost all the time is, yeah, you know what? It was good to know that going into it. We know so much, but we're also shifting our focus between writing a contract in this 5 minutes and then going to a BEO in the next 5 minutes and going to this and going to that. We know it all, but the environment has us shifting our minds into all these different things. Having something that knows and is with us at all times to remind us, be prepared for this now, set your, mind to this, giving yourself a framework for everything that you're shifting into is so valuable. So thinking it less like a tool and more like an omnipresent assistant that is there to give you to back you up is a better way of looking at it, because you don't have to do what the assistant says, but it doesn't hurt to be able to arm yourself with that kind of, ammo.
Okay, great. We have a question from Bonnie. Is there anyone or company that you follow that is a valued AI resource?
That's a very interesting question to which I don't think there's an answer.
I don't think there is either.
Okay.
And I think the reason for that is it's changing while we're sitting here.
Right.
And it doesn't come with a set of instructions. And so you go back to what you thought you were going to do with a particular tool. And in some cases, it doesn't do it anymore. In some cases, they've moved it around where you can't find it. So, to identify one that works for me, I mean, right now, my two favorite things for me has been the Notebook LM, which they renamed now as Google Notebook, and Claude. But that changed dramatically from a month and a half ago, where I would have told you that it was ChatGPT and Perplexity. So,
okay.
I mean, from an
it's important to understand the name of my company is Shift Happens.
Right. Got that. And I want to remind everybody, please look these guys up on LinkedIn. They both spoke at our convention recently, and they are a great resource. Shift Happens. And Nick, let me make sure I got your company right. Zenus.
That's correct.
Oh, okay, great. So now we're going to talk very quickly. We just want to go into one thing to start doing tomorrow. Okay. This is before our lightning round, by the way. I want each of you to leave the audience with something concrete. One thing to start doing tomorrow. James?
Stop asking the wrong question. Don't begin by asking, what can AI do? Start with, this is my problem. Where am I wasting my time? And the more you have told it about who you are, what you do, the better the answers are. So I go back to my two comments. Number one, pay the $20. Pick one, and it's only for 1 month. If you don't like it, do something else. But pay $20 and see the difference. And define the output or the results first. And many cases, it's the repetitive side. Some of it is the executional side. But in any case, you got yourself a really smart employee. Treat it as if that employee is sitting right next to you, and you're training it to be a better employee, to give you the things that you want that employee to do.
Okay. And Nick, what is one thing that they should start doing tomorrow?
Yeah, I mean, I think for a broad answer, it doesn't get any better than James. I'll go one that's really specific. Think about trends. Ask it and for, is there a trend that would help me in this challenge that I'm working on right now? And what information or what data would you need in order to do that? It could be a trend within an internal meeting that takes place once a week. And they would say, well, if you gave me the transcript from these meetings, I could tell you the trend of who's contributing the most and who might not be in this meeting. or it could be, in your event work, it could be specifically content that is hot right now, whatever it is. But think about leveraging AI. The first use case and where most people stop ends up being in content, ends up being in email writing, social media. That stuff's great, but if you want to go to the next level and aim more towards a strategist position, start thinking along the lines of leveraging it for trend analysis in what you do, because that positions you better and gives you a better perch to make better decisions.
Okay, great. Now it's time for the lightning round. Okay, so just very quickly, James, one AI tool everyone should try.
I think you would have to say today it's still ChatGPT, not because it's the only tool, but it's the easiest place to learn how to collaborate, and it's been around the longest.
Okay, great. Nick, most overrated AI claim.
Automation, taking people out of things.
Okay.
I think especially in our work, it doesn't, there's less use cases than most people would think, that where full automation ends up being the best route.
Okay, great. Thank you. James, biggest productivity gain you've gotten from AI?
The very first book I wrote, it took me a year. My last book, which was 30% bigger, took me about 2 hours.
Okay.
That's
wow.
great. Yeah.
What is one thing AI should never write?
Anything where trust is the most important outcome.
Mhm.
That's where I see an opportunity. Information going into what you're doing is great, but ultimately any exchange where the outcome is, the goal is trying to increase trust, better to go as authentic as possible.
Okay. Do we have any more questions from the audience? Somebody was asking earlier and I didn't get to it. When it comes to creativity, can you speak to the sameness that you might be vulnerable to if you're using that kind of, creativity for your own? In other words, how should you treat this as far as trying to create something, whether it be visual, whether it be words? What would you say about the danger of sameness?
I think it's the exact opposite. I think because I've trained my tool so much on who I am and what I've done,
Mm-hmm.
I have to rein it in, because it often goes out, say, well, this is really creative, or this really looks cool. And I go, yeah, but I don't understand it. We need to bring it back to where the audience can understand it, because I'm not trying to impress myself.
Mm-hmm.
Trying to make sure that the audience walks away with something that they can use.
Okay, great. And one of our listeners is saying, Elizabeth is saying, for help in writing prompts in Microsoft Copilot, there is a prompt coach that can help you craft what you want to do. So like what you were saying, the prompts have to be correct, and they have to keep going. You just don't stop with the first answer. So something that I just want to summarize quickly the themes that we've learned today or talked about today. AI is no longer optional. The industry has moved past experimentation. Planners who adopt AI thoughtfully will have a real competitive edge. 2, start with the workflow. You don't need to overhaul everything. Pick one area, brainstorming, writing, data, and build from there. And 3, AI amplifies. It doesn't replace your emotional intelligence, your relationships, your judgment. These are your differentiators. AI makes you more efficient so you can invest more in what matters. The best prompt is a clear one. Learning to communicate with AI is a skill. The better your input, the better your output, which is what James was saying, garbage in, garbage out. And start tomorrow, not next quarter, not after the next conference, tomorrow. And I see the white paper is ready to download, but thank you, Nick and James, and all of everybody who's watching for joining us today. We are so grateful for your expertise in sharing practical and actionable results. A reminder, today's session earns 1 CEU credit, and we'll send the recordings and the resources to everyone who has registered. If you want to continue the conversation, connect with us at Prevue, and please connect with them on LinkedIn or go to their websites to learn more. Thank you very much and have a great rest of your day, everybody.
Thanks.
Thank you very much.